Stephen. I'm back over here at Wind River's booth, and I had just walked away from a different demonstration from your colleagues where we're highlighting the power of SDN and NFV, delivering service function chaining with tools like OpenStack and Open Daylight, along with other virtual network functions from a large number of industry partnerships that both Wind River as well as Brocade have. So, right now, I guess what we're wanting to kind of have you demonstrate for us is the functionality behind Wind River's carrier-grade communication server with the Brocade Viata virtual router, deliver high reliability and redundancy for carrier-grade based telco environments. You mind actually just walking us through the demonstration?
Yes, I will right now. I'll give a real quick overview of the carrier-grade communication server for Wind River, or CGCS as we call it. The Horizon interface on top of CGCS has a lot of different functionality, and it gives us a lot of different information about the cluster that we're running. The cluster that we're running is quite small. We have 2 controllers and we have 2 compute nodes. On those compute nodes, we have an overview here of the Brocade VMs that we are running. And we can also give an overview of all the virtual networks that are created, and we can see these visually as well. You can zoom up on these just a little bit, and you can see that in between the virtual networks, we have virtual routers that we have defined inside the cloud, and then we have a virtual router that's defined to the outside network as well. I'd like to focus a little bit on the Brocade guests themselves, and we have a number of these, like I mentioned, located on the compute nodes, and there's a couple that I want to focus on particularly. We have 2 VMs here which are doing routing between an Ixia, and one of these is a master and one of these is the standby. So in case we lose a VM, we won't lose any packets, or we'll lose very few packets. I want to go in and find out first of all which one is the master. And we can do this from the console. Simple command to list which one's the master. So we know right now that VRB2 is the master. I'm going to take a quick look at VRB1, and we will run the same command, and here we can see VRB1 is the backup. Now I'm going to go back to VRB2 and reset it. And while I reset it, I'm also going to show the traffic flowing on the VM itself. The traffic that we're going to show is from the command line, and we simply are just listing the amount of packets that we receive and the amount of packets that are then routed and transmitted. Now, to perform the failover, I'll just simply reboot the instance. And as I rebooted it, I'm going to move back over to the standby. We can see our standby is now the master, and if we look at the transmit packets and receive, we've continued to perform the function of the virtual router with very little interrupt because of the fault. Now there's other features inside of Wind River's carrier-grade communication server as well. And these are high availability features that I would like to share with you. If we look at the hosts themselves, we have the ability to activate or switch over to the standby controller over to active. And we can do that simply by, again, simulating a fault on the controller 1, which is now the active. I'm on controller 1 now. I'm going to reboot it, again, to simulate a hardware fault. It will take a little while for the GUI to update. There's a floating IP address that it's connected to. That IP address will be switched from the active controller over to the standby, which is now becoming the active. And now we can see that controller 0 is the active, and this has assumed the floating IP address. So if I go back over to the command line window, log back into the same floating address, you can see that we're controller 0 here as well. Now I'd also like to talk about a couple of other features, such as live migration of the VMs. We'll go back to the same VMs that we were looking at before. We can see that both the VRB1 and the VRB2 are now running on Compute 0. And we can move these over to Compute 1 simply by selecting live migration. Now we can see that both of them are running on Compute 1. There's a number of other instances running on Compute 1 now as well. So we have a pretty good balance between VMs between Compute 1 and Compute 0. But I would like to show what will happen if we have a full fault on the compute node, and we will put a fault on compute node 1. And again, we'll do the same, we'll simulate the fault the same way we've done it to the other VMs and machines, and that's by rebooting it. Now I'm logged on to compute 1, and I will type reboot. And now we can see that all of the VMs that we're running on Compute 1 have automatically migrated over to Compute 0, and the complete system is back up and running.